All right, so I just wanted to give a pretty quick overview of the Morningstar Editor. Maybe you just picked up a Morningstar like I did. I got the MC6 Pro, and it's very cool. It can do so much. When I first got into the editor, I was a little overwhelmed, and it took me some digging around and some Googling to kind of get a grasp on it. And there's still a lot in here that I have no clue what it does. But basically, so the way that I'm using my controller, my MC6 Pro, is to basically set up presets for songs. So you can see that I have all my banks on the left here. I've got songs set up, and then presets will be like sections of songs, so I can turn different effects on and off and hopefully make my life easier. So when you first open up, I think you end up in this edit preset section. But if you're going to use this in the way that I am, you're going to want to probably go to edit bank first, and then bank name for me is going to be the name of the song. And then there's some cool things about this page. What I've been doing is right down here, you can set up a message for when you just get into the bank. So without even hitting a preset, I can get into the bank and I can tell it to start a MIDI clock, which is super cool. So I can send, like, for instance here, you can on bank, and you scroll down, MIDI clock, and then set it to 86 BPM. That's the BPM of the song. And then stop MIDI clock. I say no. If you hit yes, it'll send, I believe it just sends the MIDI clock. And then if you switch presets, like for me, the MIDI clock's going to my timeline, and I want it to be able to control the BPM, the tap tempo of the timeline of my delays. So I want it to keep, in this case, I want it to keep the MIDI clock going so that when I hit a different song preset and switch delays, it's still going to send that MIDI clock information to that new preset. So I stay at 86 BPM. Some songs I have the delays programmed per song, and so I don't have to worry about that. I'll just program the BPM into the delay itself, or into that delay preset itself, and then I don't have to worry about MIDI clock. In some cases, though, I just have a bunch of kind of go-to preset delays, especially tape delays, which I like to use a lot, and I can use those on songs. So in this case, I can just send that MIDI clock, and no matter which kind of preset delay I'm using, it's gonna make sure that I'm at 86 BPM. So that's a really cool feature of these controllers. And then in this case, on this song, I also have this control chain set up to my synesthesia to disengage that pedal, or to turn the preset off. And that's in case I come from a different song that has it on. I can, as soon as I enter this song, I know the first thing I need. I don't want that turned on. So that's what this control number does, and control value does. Just disengages that preset, just to make sure I don't want whatever previous song I was using to use that setting. So that's how I have my kind of song set up. Most of my songs work this way, where I have the MIDI clock going. Well, maybe not most of them. A lot of songs I also have the pre-programmed presets in my timeline, so I don't have to worry about it. So that's the edit bank section. You always have to make sure when you make a change, whether it's a name or down here, you hit save bank settings up here. As soon as you get out of it, you'll lose it if you don't. So make sure you do that. Now I can go over to the edit preset. So this is going to be my actual presets per song. You can see on the right side here, I can set up sections of the song, and by default, they just all say empty. And so A through F are the 6 presets that I can see right on the first page, and generally I don't need more than that. So on this page, the short name is what you're going to actually see on the screen of the controller. Toggle name and shift name, I haven't used those at all. You have the option to set up a toggle. So if you hit the preset once, it'll do its position 1 here. If you hit it again, you can have it be like the toggle position. So it's like a second position. It can send out more messages. So you can actually go back and forth if you want to between presets with the same button, which is cool. And you have the ability to customize colors on that as well. And there's also like the shift name. So there's like a shift mode or something. Can't remember what they call it. Shift something, shift mode basically. which lets you set up yet another alternative to that button press. So I haven't even dove into that yet, but that's another thing that you can do. So there's all your settings for that, for naming them and customizing the color for them. And you can set up background color just by clicking it, selecting a color, the text color, and then the strip color. There's a little strip at the bottom. You can change that as well. So pretty neat. Below that is where you're gonna start making your MIDI messaging. So you can see MIDI message 1, MIDI message 2 I'm using, and then all the way to 32. So you can do a lot of messaging out of the controller. So in my case, I have on press, you can tell it how the action and then what the change is. So on press type, I want it to do a program change because I want it to go to a specific preset on my, in this case, timeline. Preset 2, and I set this to no, send to all MIDI channels. No, I just want it to go to my MIDI channel 1, which is where my timeline's at. And another cool thing which I'll show you is how to name these channels, which makes it a little easier to identify. So it's pretty easy to set up. And then I have a second message. So, and this one's for my big sky. So I'm just telling it on press again, do a program change 4. So I want that 4th preset only to go to channel 2, my big sky. So as I hit that foot switch, both of these messages send out immediately and change presets on both of those, making it much easier. It's the whole purpose that I got this controller. And then once again on this, you're gonna want to save preset before you go into any other presets or you will lose it. I've done that a couple times, so I just get in the habit of changing something, hit save, and you're good to go. Another cool feature about this is the copy and paste up here. So I can take, if I know I'm gonna have a very similar setup and I just maybe wanna make one change, I can take, say, this intro turnaround, I can hit copy. I can go to this preset here, which is empty, and hit paste. And then boom, I got the whole thing. It names it. Maybe this is like something else, like a chorus 2, if I can type. And then make like a program change. Maybe all I wanted to do was go to a different preset on my big sky, hit save. Now that shows up here on my D preset, and that makes it so much faster than doing each and every step, especially if you have multiple program changes and all you want to do is like the same thing but change one setting or something. So that's a really handy feature. So I'm going to clear this preset since I don't actually need that. Just hit clear, and I think you double tap it, boom, goes away. And I'll hit save. Okay, so let's take a look at the controller settings. There's a couple of cool things in here. So under general configuration, one thing I realized I had to do was turn on this MIDI clock persist because of the way that I wanted the MIDI clock on a lot of my presets to continually send. It's kind of weird because it seems like that's already been done on the bank setting by telling it to, if I go back into the bank setting, like I told it stop MIDI clock, no, so it should continue MIDI clock. But for some reason, this also has to be on for that to work. If I remember right, that's one of the things that I had to figure out. So that has to get turned on. And then of course, save settings. Every page basically has like a save button. So you need to save it, or if you get out of that page, you'll lose it. I think that's it for under general configuration. There's some other things here that I haven't even messed with. You can load settings into it if you have saved settings. So in order, if you want to name your MIDI channels, which I've done, you can go to Edit MIDI Channel Settings. And so this lists out all your MIDI channels. So MIDI channel 1 for me is my timeline. So I just named it timeline. MIDI channel 2 is Big Sky. And then MIDI channel 3 is Synesthesia. And you can also tell it where these MIDI channels are, or what you want to go out to the MIDI channel. So for me, I actually only need DIN MIDI because that's all. I just have daisy chained MIDI through those 3 pedals. But I just have, by default, they're all selected. I'm not using any of these others right now, so I'm just using DIN MIDI, so it doesn't matter. But you can specify which MIDI output you want it to go out of, which is really cool. And so again, this is where over here it shows up timeline, big sky, synesthesia. Otherwise it's just 1, 2, 3, and it makes it way easier to identify with the name. So I think it's a really cool feature, and I'm glad they have that in there. Let's go back to controller settings. There's another thing in here that's cool. Bank arrangements. That's another thing I kind of had to figure out. But if you want, so as you set up your different banks over here, you'll notice the first thing I tried to do to reorder this was just to try to click and drag over here, but that doesn't do anything. You actually have to go into this bank arrangement and set up this custom bank sequence. Now over here, you can reorder your banks. And it just has to do with the way that the controller handles like a bank for every MIDI slot. I don't know really, there's an article on their website that kind of talks about this, but this allows you to be able to move the banks around in a custom order. So for me, I want I want to be able to reorder a set list for, in this case, like, or most of my scenarios on a worship set, I can week to week change the order. And I always just dump them into the front end. So it's, as soon as I start it up, I'm at song 1, and I can just drag and drop and reorder these, which is really handy, rather than tapping through all the presets to find where you want them. Again, this is another thing that I missed. A couple things to think about actually. One, if you're in editor mode, you make changes here, you will not see those changes as long as you're connected to this editor. So you have to make sure to unplug and reset the controller. I have found it's not good enough to just disconnect from the editor. You actually have to restart. So I just unplug, plug back in the editor or the device, the MC6, and then it will see your custom bank sequence. If you don't do that, it won't show up, and it's kind of frustrating. The other thing is now you have to tell it to follow the custom bank sequence, or else it's just going to still default to the default bank sequence. So reordering it over here doesn't do anything on your device unless you hit follow custom bank sequence. That was another little frustration. And then of course, save it again to make sure that the changes take effect. Make sure that you save it, toggle this on, and then reset the controller for you to actually be able to use this custom bank sequence. All right, and then one last thing I wanted to show you was a MIDI monitor. This could be helpful for troubleshooting. If you're toggling a preset and nothing's happening, you can actually go here, and this will keep an active log of the data that sends out. So if I reach over and hit a preset, that preset sent 2 program changes, which it's supposed to, and it tells me the channels it sent it to. So I know that the device is sending the correct data out, and there's something after that that would be the problem. So this can be helpful for troubleshooting, especially when you first kind of set things up. Maybe one of your pedals is set to the wrong MIDI channel, or something like that. So this is just a cool kind of thing to use for troubleshooting if you're having problems. I hope that helps you a little bit. I just wanted to make something like this because just getting started with this, there's a lot of weird things to kind of figure out how to use the editor, how the device worked, and just some little quirks that would be helpful to know as you first use one of these pedals. So if you want to see more tutorials like this about the Morningstar Editor or the controllers, just let me know in the comments, and I'm going to continue to dive deeper into the editor and all the things that these controllers can do because it's really cool. And if you're interested, then I'll do more tutorial videos like this. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one.